Because when we're talking about the end of work, basically that's what we're talking about. The end of work, especially for people who don't have transferable skills to the future. And so, what percentage of the population would that be? I don't know, but just off top, if you ask me to guess, I'd probably say like, probably about 60% at least.
Minimum wage lowers the cost of racial discrimination. Let me just give you an example. There's a very nice book written in 1989 called South Africa's War Against Capitalism, and its author is Walter Williams. I did a study of labor markets in South Africa, and it turns out that in South Africa during the apartheid era, in the 70s, 80s, the major supporters for minimum wages for blacks were white racist labor unions that would never have a black as a member. Now, why do you think they were arguing for minimum wages for blacks? Well, it's very easy. Let's say a white laborer on a construction project is getting $5 an hour, and a poor, discriminated black doing the same work would be willing to work for $1 an hour. What do you think employers are going to do? When one guy will work for $5 an hour, and here's another guy says, I'm going to work for $1 an hour. Well, the employer has the incentive to hire the $1 an hour guy. So how can you discourage the employer from hiring the $1 an hour guy? Well, you just eliminate the $1 an hour. You say you get a law passed that the employer must pay $5 an hour no matter whom he hires. Matter of fact, in all of my research, I show that the minimum wage is one of the most effective tools in the arsenal of racists everywhere in the world. Now, you'll say to me, well, look, Walter, labor unions in the United States, they don't feel that way. Well, it doesn't make any difference whether labor unions feel that way. That is, the intentions are irrelevant to the effects. That is, somebody could push me off the Empire State Building, or I could trip. It doesn't make any difference why I went off the top of the building. It has no effect on the law of gravity. Intentions have no effect on economic outcomes.
So I agree with some of what he said because my own research has shown that the minimum wage in America resulted in bad effects for black people in America.
You know what? I kind of figured you was gonna say that.
Yeah. So now I disagree with him on the intentionality of it, but he's talking about South Africa, and that's a different system than the system that we dealt with here in America. And it came under different circumstances. The circumstances of the minimum wage program in America was based in the Great Recession and other things of that nature, trying to spur the economy back into action. And there was already a job war going on in America between black people and the white people that were that weren't upper class or middle class, that were kind of vying for the same jobs. The black people weren't getting those jobs because white labor unions were saying, if you hire niggas, we ain't gonna work with them. So wage was kind of irrelevant in that scenario. But when the Great Recession rolls around, and now whites are struggling to make ends meet and jobs are scarce, minimum wage means the jobs that they would usually overlook are now viable jobs because they have to pay certain level of income. And so the result was black people being forced out of the jobs that we typically held, and now jobs that even we ourselves think we're too good for in the community. So but the reason I say I just wanted to point out the differences is because like I really like I've been rereading Chancellor Williams and a lot of other black scholars, and one of the things that I'm noticing that not just Chancellor Williams but a lot of them are harping on is the fact that we kind of have to, those of us that have the time, the energy, and the ability to interpret data at this point have a responsibility to do so. And so in this case, because everybody's out here making plans and focused on how they think we need to solve the problem, at least that's what they say, the intentions allude to the thinking, the motives, and the behaviors of the people that are doing the thing, their real goals. And so I think it becomes important that we understand the intentions of what happened, not just saying, yeah, but this is the effect. And this is only for people that want to get involved in creating solutions and things of that nature. If you just want to be involved in implementation, or if you don't care, you just want to do your thing, then none of this stuff matters, because at the end of the day, I agree with what he said, the results are the same. But if you're making a plan of action, then you can't just focus on the results. That's a part of it, but you also have to focus on the intentions, because that speaks to the mindset of the people that created the activity. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, especially when you're talking about like the last part, you're talking about the mindset of the people. Overall, we're talking about labor and economics and Black people's ability to work. I know this is something that you definitely covered in your book, The Chasm. Definitely chapters dedicated to how, like you said, Black people were forced out of work. So I never thought about minimum wage like that before. That's why this clip was interesting to me. And that's one of the reasons why I chose it. Is I never really thought about minimum wage being a tool for racism. And so listening to what he's saying, and then kind of sitting back and thinking about and analyzing what I've witnessed through my time working. And I think it's a combination of a lot of things that we talk about in the past. Having time to think about this clip and look into some things, not too much time to look into some things, but even just time to analyze a bit, and also analyzing the experiences that I've had with people and working minimum wage myself. It's a real interesting way to look at it, because you have minimum wage being used as a tool for racism, but you also have, people's behavior, just like this past year or 2020, you had the Great Recession. You had a whole bunch of people quitting their jobs and, thinking that they finna go manifest some things without actual real work. And that's what I'm getting at, actual real work. So I think nowadays that's a piece that's missing into what he's saying. But that's more relevant for nowadays, is people's lack of want to go out and work and go out and get it. People being a lot more lazy. So we in itself, I think that's a manifestation of racism in itself, is, that Negro mindset, going back to that. These people have been their mental capacity or their will or whatever, their will to fight, their will to thrive has been beat down so much that they just cool with surviving. And you don't have to put in effort to survive. Well, you have to put in a little effort, but you don't have to put in maximum effort to survive. And so it's like an evolution of it. It's like adding on to it. So you have minimum wage on one end, and then you have people who actually succumb to the Negro mindset. So it's a double-edged sword that's actually stabbing both sides. So
I think it's hard. I'm sorry, PC. Did you just want to say something?
Oh no, y'all go ahead and finish. I'll jump in at the end.
I think so the minimum wage discussion, I think at the time it did have an impact on pushing Black folk in particular out of the job force. Even though I think the intent was to open things up for white people. I don't think Black people were even a consideration at the time that the government was doing their things. And if they were a consideration, it was a consideration in terms of, well, it'll keep these niggas from moving up. All right, that's positive. Right. And that's more reason to do it. Right. But I think one of the things I think that becomes interesting, even with what he's saying, in terms of the white guy being willing to hire the Black guy if the labor was cheaper. We know that racism doesn't exactly work like that.
That's not totally true. Right.
Yeah, that's at least that's not our experience of racism here in America. I don't.
Well, especially Africa, here in the South. Nepotism is real.
Different. Right. People are willing to pay more money for lower quality work to deal
Right.
with the people that they want to deal with.
That's I've experienced that. I've seen that through my experiences. I say that in addition to seeing people who don't want to work.
Right. So I think that now if the minimum wage argument has become very interesting because it's now become a way that people are talking about how do we shrink the growing income disparity, which is interesting because if the goal was really to shrink the income disparity, then you don't solve that problem by trying to raise the floor when the ceiling is racing away. You solve that problem, unfortunately, by lowering the ceiling. So if we were genuinely talking about lowering the income disparity, we would be talking about a maximum wage limit, not a minimum wage bottom.
Yeah.
Like that'd be like that's the way you solve that problem. CEOs
but that'll
are
never
making
happen.
right.
Ooh,
So that's what's up.
What he said.
You sound like a
What
commie. You sound like a goddamn commie.
I was like, oh shit, I fucked up. Uh-oh. My fault.
Hey, nah, it's all good. You get at least 2 or 3 fucks.
No, but I and even to that, that's a great point, PC. I am a capitalist. I don't have no problems with saying that. And then, I've been debated on that before. I'm a capitalist. That's what it is. But if we are seriously talking about solving this this income inequality thing, then that's not something you solve at the floor. That's something you solve at the ceiling. But that's a conversation that people I've been talking to people for years. When I bring that concept up, most of the time people say they never even thought about it. How in the hell are you talking about income inequality and you've never even thought about putting a cap on the ceiling? How is that? But we know what that is too, right? That's human behavior. Everybody thinks they're gonna make $1 billion and they don't want to ever
right. How can I also become a millionaire like everybody else if you're gonna put a cap on my wages?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So here we are with a non-starter
manifestation. Manifestation.
Because Marcus Garvey had a plan. I believe it was, the most you can make is $5 million. Then everything from that goes to the next, help to build the next millionaire and so forth and so on. But, and Pat, you covered it beautifully. There's not really much more to add to the historical context that you just put out there in regards to how this particular concept of racism, of minimum wage being utilized for racism. Because, like you said, I think the minimum wage, it didn't take into consideration. No, I don't think any laws in this country, unless it specifically says so, really gave a damn about its effects on Black people, not in a positive way anyway.
Right.
So I think when especially around this time, you still had, you're talking about recovering from, you're talking about the New Deal, right? You're talking about recovering from the worst stock market crash to date, the worst recession to date. And then you had to keep taking into consideration all of these immigrants coming from other countries that were brought here to compete with the skilled labor class that Black people were thriving in at that particular time. And like you said, that's why those unions came about. This was about the fact that only time they hired Black people is when they needed them.
Right.
This is a labor class out of necessity.
Right.
So
always been that.
I mean, even if you look to today, right? Because you covered the past, man. I'm gonna talk about today. And you look at what this livable wage, because now the conversation is about livable wages, right? So now all of a sudden, people are trying to push the livable wages up, but minimum wage I don't think was ever designed to compete with inflation.
I would agree with that.
And Black people are always going to get, as long as Black people depend on this system, we're always going to get the short end of the stick. And even back when you're talking about post-Great Depression, the 30s, Black people had a different form of surviving these particular occurrences. Black people were more into bartering. Black people were more into growing their own food. Black people were able to trade their skills for food and things of that nature. Black people had a community to actually work together.
Hey,
Those times, so yeah, racism played a role because it was always going to be about squeezing black people off the table. It's like at some point we're going to move you out the way to make room for our people,
yep.
and that's who will have access to this. So intentionality, we always got to pay attention to intentionality, because intentionality comes with plan A, plan B, and plan C.
Right.
So if
Mm-hmm.
the intention is to starve out this particular population, which at the time, you know, coinciding with this is the eugenicist movement, which is picking up steam, so much so that Adolf went and built and copied it and utilized it to start World War II. Uh, and their whole notion was around soft and hard, right? I'm not. Is it okay if I say that word, Joe?
Well,
I
I
know the
mean,
shadow band on
do you do
YouTube.
you do your thing, man. You know, hey, man, I'm editing
All right, I'm
Wiz
gonna call
now.
them
So,
pills.
nah,
Soft and
man,
hard pills.
go ahead and or you can say deletion or eliminations or something.
Okay, hard and soft deletions, right? And
That
that was
sound freaky.
and that was their way of dealing with this whole concept around population growth and depopulating and sterilizing populations. So a lot of these things all come together and culminate around the same time. Don't think for a second that one hand didn't know what the other hand was doing when all these
Well,
policies came into play. So I
well,
definitely believe that we need to understand intentionality when it comes to, and no disrespect to our elder, ancestor, because they only knew what they knew back then. And it's
well.
why we get the chance to discern what they've talked about now and then re-examine the situation and circumstances with a much broader lens.
I mean, but so two things. The first thing is, like you said, you shouldn't have to say no disrespect to the elder, because I'm gonna say it. I've said it once, I said it twice, I said it again. I would think that they want us to have some critical thinking about what they're saying and not just parrot what they're saying and just blindly follow it. Like actually have some critical thinking about it. I would think that they would want us to do that.
Oh no,
So,
Joe.
no,
I
I'm
don't
not,
think
and
they
I'm
have a
not saying
problem
that
with it.
to you.
Yeah. I'm talking about
Yeah.
the fan clubs that typically hit us in the comment section.
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying it to. That's what I'm saying it to. That's what I'm saying it to. 'Cause we shouldn't like we should think about everything. I'm pretty sure they want us to have critical thinking about this, but that's enough. But so two things you said that were very important, specifically PC after Pat laid it out. And I appreciate y'all for dunking these alley oops. I appreciate y'all. Blake Griffin tomorrow starting my. There we go. So survival and living wages. Black labor in America has never been about living wages.
Mm-hmm.
Now, black labor has always led to black survival. Now, out of survival, we're gonna get two types of people. You're either gonna get people who want it or people who don't want it. Unfortunately, the people who have fire in their belly, who are actually willing to go out and get it, are not as in abundance as they used to be when it comes to the black community. The problem with that is moving forward, survival is going to mean something different. That's the problem with that. And we've been telling y'all for the longest that 2050 is coming, and it's coming soon, and it's coming hard. It's coming faster than you thinking it will, right? And so livable wages will be even more difficult to attain in the future if we don't get our stuff together. It's 2023. They saying by 2050, the median black income will be zero. Basically, most black, it's either gonna be rich or poor. There ain't gonna be no in between. So you either gonna have it or you not gonna have it. But what will the future look like? That's the question. So let's find out. Let's take a look from. Oh, go ahead. My bad.
No. I had two things too, real quick. Probably not, but I'm gonna try to make them quick. Um, the great Joe, you brought up PC, you brought up the laws, and I thought that was a great point. We did for 4 or 5 years in a row, we did a political report card where we graded every member of Congress on the laws that were passed and their impact on the Black community. And there were no A laws passed, including that during this time period. We had the My Brother's Keeper initiative, we had the prison reform, we had a number of laws that gained a lot of traction in the community for things we should be excited about. And if you just read the laws, you would see going in, these laws are not structured in a way that's going to have a meaningful impact on the Black community. Especially the last one, which was the prison reform joint, which didn't actually reform any. It was specific to federal prisons, which are usually filled with white people. But then on top of that, Joe, you mentioned the great resignation that happened following COVID. And what we're entering into now is a time period called the Great Regret.
Right.
Where most of those people that resigned from their jobs, a lot of the ones that are interviewing now are saying that they wish they wouldn't have done that. And a lot of the people that were a driving force in the Great Resignation were people in the Black community who got hopped up on social media and all of this motivational, go be great, live your life, nobody can stop you, I'm powerful, blah 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 stuff.
With no skills.
That's true, but you didn't have a plan, you didn't have skills, you didn't have anything to fall back on, no nest egg or nothing like that. And now the Great Regret is here, and people are being evicted, children are living in cars with their parents, all kinds of crazy foolishness is going on, all because we got hopped up on Mountain Dew and started acting like spider monkeys.
Hey. And it's only gonna get worse.
Oh, a lot worse. One last thing.
Go ahead.
February 28th was the last day that SNAP was offering additional food stamps benefits to people. So if people were getting SNAP benefits and they were used to getting that extra bump, that's over. And the food hikes and the prices are going to continue. So that's all I had to add to that.
And it's only going to get worse.
The meaning of life for useless class. What will people do if technology makes jobs useless? Yuval Noah Harari conducts research on the worthless class and defines a new meaning for life. Over the next decades, most of the jobs that exist today may disappear. In view of the constant development of artificial intelligence, which is capable of more and more tasks every day, it thereby displaces the human factor from an increasing number of professions. However, at the same time, there will be many new professions related more to creativity and flexibility. And it's not clear whether 40-year-old unemployed taxi drivers and insurance agents will be able to join the new sphere of information technology. Even if we assume that people of aging professions can find themselves in someone like a designer of the virtual world, progress will lead to the fact that a person will again have to reorganize in a new way in the next 10 years. The problem isn't in the number of places, but in creating jobs for people whose work the algorithm does worse than a person. So it's quite possible that by 2050, a new class of people will appear, a useless class. Not just unemployed people, but people who cannot be employed. However, a support system through some scheme of universal basic income could help useless people. In this case, the real problem will be to keep people engaged in any purposeful activity, otherwise they'll go crazy. So, what can you do with a useless class? One possible solution could be a computer game. Indeed, economically independent people are devoting more and more time to virtual reality. This contributes to much greater engagement. For millennia, people have been fond of a kind of virtual reality game, religions, so this decision is quite old. Religions invent their imaginary laws such as don't eat pork, repeat the same prayers a certain number of times a day, and so on, that people try to follow, earning imaginary points. If you pray daily, you earn points. If not, you lose them. And if at the end of your life's journey you gain enough points, You go to the next level, aka heaven. However, reality and its natural laws don't require any of the above. So what is this, if not an analogy to virtual reality games, which is played by millions around the world? As is evident from religions, virtuality doesn't have to be isolated and sealed in some kind of a box. It's quite possible to project onto physical reality. In the past, this was done through the human imagination and books. Now, a telephone is enough. The search for the meaning of life through a game in virtual reality is characteristic not only of religions, but also of secular ideologies, lifestyle. The same goes for consumerism. People buy expensive cars and branded items, thus earning points. You can argue and say that we love all that we do, and that's certainly true. All this happens inside our head. So is there any difference if this happens through stimulation of neurons or screens of electronic devices? One way or another, the meaning of things around is created by our own mind. We all know that the meaning of life doesn't exist. It's only a fictional story created by people. Anthropologist Clifford Geertz described in his essay Deep Play, Notes on the Balinese Cockfight in 1973, how the cockfights in Bali had a significant impact on social, economic, and political vision as players and observers. The game acquired so much meaning for the Balinese that it became a reality. They were prepared to take risks and be arrested, fined, but ignore the law when the Indonesian government declared the fighting illegal. The author could arguably have written similar essays on football in Argentina or Judaism in Israel. A significant percentage of ultra-Orthodox Jewish men in Israel never work but spend their time studying holy scriptures and conducting religious rituals. Thanks to generous subsidies from the government, as well as working wives, men and their families are not starving. They are provided with basic necessities and don't need anything. And this feature is a unique example of a post-work world. Global surveys of life satisfaction show that Israel almost always has a top position, and partly because of the unemployed caste. It's ultra-Orthodox Jews who claim much more satisfaction with life than any other part of Israeli society. That's universal basic income and action, despite poverty and lack of labor. To see and understand the post-work world, it's not necessary to go to Israel. Just look at the teenagers who enjoy computer games. Provide a minimal subsidy for Coca-Cola and pizza, remove any control, and you'll see that the likely outcome is that the child will remain in his room glued to the screen. He'll skip school, won't do homework, skip meals and showers, but you will not see him bored or aimlessly wandering around. Certainly not in the short term. So virtual realities are most likely the solution to the problem of the useless existence of a class of people in the post-work world. And no matter how these realities are created, the possibilities are endless. No one could say what will wait for us in 2050. Despite everything, the end of work doesn't mean the end of the meaning of life, because it's created by the imagination and not by work. People of various eras make the meaning of life even without working. Probably, the mankind of 2050 will be able to plunge into a world with much deeper and more complex virtual worlds than have ever existed in history. But do we really want to live in a fantasy world, following fictitious goals and obeying imaginary laws? What about reality?
Oh, wow.
Definitely shots fired. Definitely shots fired. Like they didn't hold back. They didn't hold back. Whoever made that one, they didn't hold back. You know?
Maybe they should have. Maybe they should have held back a little bit.
Hey, their views do not reflect our views. Okay.
Their views do reflect the growing views of the younger generation, though, unfortunately.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, this feeds into the whole. It's funny how it's like it's being redefined, because before there's pockets of people who live that life now. They were called incels, and now all of a sudden their society seems to be moving in that direction. We're starting to see a lot of the science fiction become science fact. And in looking at that particular diagram, that video we just watched, there's a lot to draw from it. First of all, why was the white cock bigger than the black cock? I got issues.
Facts, brother.
I paid attention. Can't pull that off, can't get that by me. But you know, one of the things, a lot of what we're seeing right there is the fact that all this automation, all this digital stuff, all these things have been worked in. And there was a time when it would be done by movies alone. It was called predictive programming. And soon we're going to be moving. I mean, we're not even soon. We're there right now. People just aren't talking about it because, publicly speaking, this is something that would probably create some sort of scare and a reaction. But we're at that place right now. I believe all of 2020 was an experiment in universal basic income. When most people couldn't go out to work, but somehow, some way, they were provided access to money, and they were able to move, and the money was given to them in credits. We call it dollars, but it was credits. The fact that we're being desensitized to all these different things. Facebook changed up its whole its own operation, and it started gearing towards the metaverse, right? You have the Oculus, right, which is the headset, virtual reality headset for a gaming system.
Google
I'm not going to name them
glasses.
because we don't get paid for that shit.
Yeah.
I mean, when you sit here, when you look at it, this is mouse utopia, rat utopia, an experiment that was done in the 50s, where they put these rats or they put these mice in a city. Like they created a township or a city for these for the mice and the rats. They gave them all the food they could ever want. What they did was they ate, they partied, they ended up population explosion. But then something happened along the way in which many of them just lost their desire to live. And many of the mice and many of the rats decide to lay on the side and just die. They stop eating, they stop moving, they stop participating. In addition to that, they formed gangs, like gangs, mice and rats roaming the nest and biting and chewing off the tails of other rodents. This was happening while simultaneously another experiment was going on with the high-rise housing projects in St. Louis, in particular, the Pruitt-I-Go housing projects, in which they provided this building that was supposed to be built in a way that provided all the resources, a supermarket and a laundromat within the building, a playground on the grounds and things of that nature. But these families were given all they needed, and they found a similar pattern happen. Now, a lot more sinister stuff happened with Pruitt-I-Go. They were crop dusting it with Agent Orange and all these other things. But the bottom line is the same. There was an experiment going there, an experiment. You start to have the gangs, the rise in gang violence. And then you start seeing the decrease in life and in the projects and in the rodent utopias. You saw a stark decline in the in function organization. It just turned into all chaos, and people lost hope. The rats and the mice lost hope, and we started to see it. So I'm gonna stop for now because I got a whole lot more, but I want I'm gonna let you and Pat get in.
I mean, written in 1995.
Mm-hmm.
So my first question is, so what does all this mean for us? Like, where does this leave us? Because when we're talking about the end of work, basically that's what we're talking about. The end of work, especially for people who don't have transferable skills to the future. And so what percentage of the population would that be? I don't know, but just off top, if you ask me to guess, I'd probably say like probably about 60% at least. But
Well, Joe, let me ask you a question.
go ahead.
How many people does the normal fast food franchise employ? If you just had to guesstimate.
Oh man. Like you mean like when everybody at work or like when they under because no, and I say that because like
Yeah,
I
yeah.
say let's say between 4 and 20. I say that.
Okay. Now those services are being automated.
Right.
So when they become automated, you get less, you hire less people.
Right.
They got some franchises around the country that are 100% automated. There's
Well,
no employees in the building.
right. Well, also on top of that, we are a group of people who are actively being replaced as a labor class, not just by AI, but by the Hispanic population are replacing us actively as the main labor class. So, everybody keep mentioning 2050, 2050, 2050. That led me back to that Road to Zero Wealth report that says that the black middle class it won't exist. There won't be no black middle class by 2050. Like like I said earlier, either rich or poor. And so how many of us actually really have transferable skills to the future? What skills do you need to transfer into the future? Like, real quick, I meet a lot of people who don't want to learn technology. That's going to be to their detriment. Go ahead, my bad.
Yeah, I'll jump on that one too because I work on a college campus and I know somebody that's actually taken a high level physics course. And he said he is the only African American in the whole class.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's like 2 women, but they're not black.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? So that just gives you, an idea. Most people want that, but most people want the income. They don't want to do the work to get it. So when you start talking about what that looks like with the transferable skills, we can go back 15, 20 years, 15 years ago to 2007, 2008, when it was the mass drop off of mass run of people losing their jobs in all these different industries. And what ended up happening was, and goes back to what you were saying, Patrick, about how black people get moved out the way.
Yes.
You had people who were actually making 6-figure salaries back then have to go, and now they have to apply their skills to Walmart. They have to apply this. So now they're the supervisor at Walmart. They're the manager at McDonald's. But now the people who are managers at McDonald's can't get that job no more. The people that work their way to the top through
Oh man, he was grooving.
Higher credentials. Yeah, higher credentials, right? So when those people get slid down, now those people are now on fries. Those people are now at the cashier. But those people, and the people that had to work let's say they had to work 30, 35 hours a week to get their 6-figure salary. Now to maintain all the things that they had before financially, now they got to work 60 hours a week to even get close to what they were making in half the time practically. That adds to the amount of tension and stress, but it also slides down. The old saying, "Sugar, honey, iced tea rolls downhill." And what's the common phrase around black people? Last one's hired, the first one's fired. And we saw a lot of that take place during that recession in 2007 when they had these banks were too big to fail. So we saw a lot of that. And that's just a glimpse of what we're going to see moving forward, because what they were saying is once those companies received that bailout money, those companies were going to go back to full-size staff. What happened was those companies received the bailout money And those companies said, hey, we can function with half the people here, so we're not going to hire them no more. And that started this whole process of what we're seeing right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jobless recovery. I think the video phrased a lot of things interestingly. And PC, that was, I had looked over the Mouse Utopia experiment, but I had totally forgotten about it till you mentioned it. That was good stuff right there. That was good stuff.
I'm trying to keep up.
But my here's me, right? I know they want to call them useless people, and I know that term might be offensive to some people. But the moment technology was first invented, the moment humans figured out that if you use a bigger stick, you could hit something harder, the people that could only use the little stick were useless. And that's just like that to me. That's a common, like, there's no way we're going to create a society where everyone is 100% utilized. Technology is happening. People are stubborn. They're stuck in their ways. They want to learn. They don't want to learn new skills. They don't want to acquire new skills. And I think that's one of the benefits of death. Is the fact that there is a place where, those people that are stuck in this era are just not here anymore. And that's harsh to say, but it's true. And eventually I'm going to get there too, where I'm stuck in my era. Time has moved on without me. And it's probably time for me to go the way of my era. But I think what was proposed in that video in terms of a solution, I don't think is a viable solution.
Yeah, the virtual reality. That
yeah, it's the fact is, right, for you not to work, somebody else has to be working for you. So it creates an inherent unfairness, inherent inequity in the systems. Because we live in a global society right now, there are a lot of people able to not do anything because people in whole other countries are working 3 times as hard as the average worker in their country. And we can't forget about that. It's nice to talk about the Jewish man in this country who is essentially not having to do any work, and he's just studying. He's still productive. He still does work. His work produces something valuable to the society. He has a purpose. That's why he don't lose his mind and go crazy. But the productivity that he would otherwise be producing is being produced by somebody else. In the video itself, it talked about how there were women working. And we all know, let's just that piece, right? He said that the wives are working so that the men can sit home and basically philosophize, right? Could you imagine? We don't even have to imagine. Black women right now are saying that's not
gonna work. That's not gonna work. But see, that's why my question was, how is this relevant to us? What does this mean for us? Because I get how they presented it. So, and for me, I know the presentation can ruffle some feathers and this can be shocking. That's what I want to do. But let's bring it back to thinking about us, because they're talking about a future that is going to affect us.
Well, no, so that's what I'm getting to, right?
Right. No, I know you are. I'm not saying that you're not doing it, but
the in the world of virtual reality, the people that don't have access are locked out. That's the truth of it. If everything goes online, people that can't go online are locked out. And that's, I agree with PC in that. We're already here. If you don't have access to the internet, you're locked out.
Poor people don't have access to the internet. Older people don't have access to the internet.
And they're largely viewed as locked out. Now, I agree with the concept of what work is. So work is going to be largely defined by the culture, right? Yeah. What one culture considers work, another culture might consider useless. And work does serve a purpose. Humans need a purpose, otherwise they fail to function. They stop living. You need something to drive you forward, otherwise you just stop. And we've heard the saying before: if you're not moving forward, you're moving
Lost your will
backwards,
to
and you can
live.
only go back for so long before there's nothing else to back into. So I think black people in America have to understand, one, we need to get on the cutting edge, and we need to
Yes.
stop laughing,
Yes.
criticizing, and labeling people that are trying to be on the cutting edge as corny. And that I'm talking about little kids. We've all seen the kid or been the kid that was super into technology, that was a true nerd. I'm not talking about geeks. Certain types of geekdom have become cool nowadays. Certain kinds of nerds have become cool nowadays. But the true nerd, the true like studious guy that just or girl that's just in their room reading books and acquiring knowledge for the fun of it, that kid is still picked on and socially locked out. So but that's go ahead.
No, just supporting what you're saying. That makes sure people get what you're saying. Basically, he's saying the child's intellectual prowess is not being nurtured by the environment that it's in.
Absolutely. That because that kid that at 7, 8, 9, 10 years old is reading up on, like nowadays we'll say they're reading up on PC component or computer components that self-cool themselves by sweating. Technology that is still in the theoretical state, is still in the like they've produced some examples and one-offs of it, but it's not a mass production. That kid that understands the theory and the principles behind that now at 10 years old, in 10 years is going to be at the forefront of some major world-shifting technology.
Bruh.
And that kid needs to be black.
Right. I saw a video where, you know how in the Terminator 2, basically the metal that Evil T-2000 was created from that can just liquefy and transfer to somewhere place. Somebody then invented that for real.
Yeah, I mean, look, when you start getting into the cutting edge, we talking about graphene. I've been reading up on graphene for the last 4 or 5 years. Right? When that finally, what's up?
Go ahead. No, go ahead. Finish. My bad. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, when that finally breaks into the market, and there are a lot of practical applications for it in theory. If any one of those practical applications becomes something that is a reality, now we're talking about game changing on several different levels across several different industries. And the cool thing is, like, because the other thing too is we gotta not like. So here's the thing, right? I pick on PC a little bit, right? PC, brother, Professor Paul Tone Jones down there is one of the biggest nerds I know. Doesn't look like it, doesn't act like it, but he reads the books. He knows the mythologies.
He just told y'all about the rats.
Yeah, he's up on all of that stuff, right? But now, in this I might be reaching because I'm a nerd too, but in this I might be reaching. So I'm going to ask a question. PC, how long was it before you were comfortable with being a nerd in public?
Shit. Whew. I would have to say, wow, that's a good question.
Because I'll be honest, in certain spaces, I'm still not.
Right. So
I just
it would have to be in terms of
I'm smarter than you.
Joe is a different
That's
type
a damn good question, because I never even really thought about that, like when it happened. I think when I actually started, when I started doing lectures at Black and Nobel bookstore, because then, you know, I became known for whatever information, my ability to discern information.
And you were in your 30s then, right?
Yeah. Because
that's too long.
Right. Exactly. That's a damn good point. I didn't even think about that. Yeah.
So I'm finna set you up again, PC. All right. So because We're talking about nurturing talent and being cutting edge. But remember, if you build it, you must protect it. Go back to
Absolutely.
the Buffalo shooting. The man who was
Mm-hmm.
creating the machine that can make water out of the atmosphere, the moisture in the air. What happened to him in that? And then next thing you know, that machine, that invention is coming out. Some company made that and it's coming out. So
Mm-hmm.
if you build it, you must protect it. But it's like these are the things, like Pat said, being cutting edge, creating, producing, inventing, selling, like these things, we have to be producing something. We have to be creating something. We have to have industries. Like we
Mm-hmm.
have to have industries. We don't control industries like we should. We have to have industry. We have to have infrastructure. We have to have that if you want to be competitive, if you want to be different, if you want to be taken serious. Right now, being 100% dependent is going to leave us in a situation to where by 2050, because the homeless class is growing for Black people, it's growing. Like in my
Mm-hmm.
city, I can see it in my city, it's growing. And I'm like I said, I'm
Mm-hmm.
starting to see more like the shelter that houses the mothers and their children is to capacity. It's
Well,
to
what about the
capacity.
largest number of homeless are teenagers?
Right.
And we don't
And
get to
that
see
only
them. Yeah.
here there's a stop-in shelter for them,
Mhm.
but they're still
Yeah.
homeless.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we have programs at the college where it's strictly for this particular situation, outreach for strictly for these particular situations. So
S-
yeah, it's a definitely it's a problem nobody's talking about, but it's here.
But I got a question for you particularly.
Okay.
Particularly. What does school look like in the future? Because if what's the point of teaching the stuff they're teaching now if it's not even helping to transfer to proper skills today? How would school, especially for Black people, how would school, what would education look like for us in the future? Like, how do we shape that to make sure that we still are relevant in the workforce or even creating
That,
our own?
yeah, because we have to understand, and this goes back to intentionality, right? And that's what that's why I brought up the mouse and rat utopia um, experiments. But it also goes back to the fact that society, educational wise, has been designed to create modern day zombies. So Charlotte Isabite, whose father was part of the Skull and Bones crew that came through and sort of like identified as world leaders, she wrote a book called The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America, where it was put in place that unless you were in specialized schools, specialized private schools, rich institutions of that nature, that the education would be for you to be functioning slaves. So basically, functioning factory workers, just based on to not
He said,
to not understand the
we're
meaning
gonna
of
need
a
Yeah.
you to
word.
say, we're gonna need
Yeah.
you to
Say that
say all
again.
that over. You just
Yep.
Robotron.
Yeah, your internet.
Oh shit. All right, from the Charlotte Isabite point.
Yeah, that part. Yeah.
Okay. So what was created was Charlotte Isabite wrote a book um, called The Deliberate Dumbing Down of America. She was the child of of her father was part of a cohort of men who put together the current Department of Education, and their purpose was to only educate the elites. So if you can afford those expensive $20,000, $30,000 a year prep schools, and then be pushed into the Harvards, the Stanfords, the Yales of the world, then you were pushed into positions of leadership. But everybody else was going to receive a remedial education, and the remedial education was based on just access and memory skills and the ability to follow orders and instruction. That's why for young people sitting in those chairs all day and being and being still and following directions and getting demerits for acting out, those punishments are put in place to reinforce the status quo that we're going to create a underclass, a working class that does not have the capability to rise above these circumstances because we're not going to teach them that. In fact, we're going to retard their progress. So
Hey,
what we have to do is take our children out of that shit. And that means we have to actually do some work. We have, so when you talk about this, when you talk about being taken seriously, everybody else functions like a nation. Negroes are the only ones that treat this shit like some scholastic aptitude test where we
to
want to be able to
individual.
debate all day. We want to be able to talk all day. No, you have to go and help build and create institutions for your community. You have to create ministries of education, ministries of economics, ministries of politics, all the areas of activity that we talked about last week. You have to be able and willing to put your blood, sweat, in something that you may not be the immediate benefactor of, but you got to pay it forward. And we just don't seem to have enough Black people willing to sacrifice for the future, put a deposit in the ground for the future. So while we're doing these, and this is nice, and I love it, the fact that we can actually reach some people. The bottom line is if we want to survive, because that's what we were talking about earlier. Minimum wage for Black people was surviving. It wasn't about prospering. It wasn't about, any sort of success. Surviving. Huey P. Newton said that the reason why he wasn't lifting Black people up, the reason why they had all these health centers in the community and trying to re-educate people wasn't because, Black people were ready. It was because he said the Black community is on life support. And if we're going to raise them up to revolutionary liberation status, then we must help repair them and heal them so they can move forward. We've taken so many steps backwards. And then we get lost in the delusion. So if we want to build this, if we want to take this to the next level, then we ourselves have to stop being afraid to step out there on the limb and build with each other. Stop being petty. And then first of all, we have to root out all the goddamn all the derelicts that take spaces like these and try to promote themselves as leaders. Get them out the way. And then build grassroots building 10 toes down. There are brothers and sisters who want to build this, but they get no support from us. They get an ashe.
Hey,
I see
look,
you working. Yeah, but you ain't doing shit to help us doing it. So that's
look.
what we need
We
to
can, we
start.
can, we could play. We could play around if we want to.
I'm gonna tell you
What?
like this, right? Real quick. I asked Baba Smalls, Professor Small, this question. He said, "Listen," he said, "Man, I'm almost 80 years old." He said, "I did all the teaching. When are the people going to start taking the lessons that were learned, the lessons that were taught, and applying them to our reality now?"
You talking about what we keep talking about every Friday? Talking about the mindset
Right.
that we taking every Friday. See, one thing that I'm learning upon my journey too is about privilege or leadership, success, and privilege of opportunity, right? Because you said, everybody not gonna make it. Everybody don't get the opportunity. Everybody's not privileged enough to get the same opportunities. So it's going to be a limit on who can be successful in certain realms. And so being able to, Black people, we have to first learn to create our own realms. But also, until we create our own realms, we got to learn how to be the spook that's set by the door. I believe that's one of the things I really believe is we got to learn how to be the spook that's set by the door. And we have to learn to go get the information and go get the resources and bring them back and actually use them. And I know that's always been said. It's always been said, but it's real though. And people keep saying it because it's real. But it's like if we're going to make it into the future, if we're serious about making it into the future, if we're serious about thriving, especially people who talking about closing the wealth gap, we're not. I have to look at to see what our spending power and the wealth, how much wealth we gained or lost for 2020, for 2022. But I know in 2021 we lost 14%, and I know according to all the numbers, our wealth is declining. And Pat, I'm sure you know the numbers that our wealth is declining.
Yeah, no, our wealth is declining. Last I looked, the numbers weren't out for 2022 yet, and they probably won't be out for a while, at least a couple months. But they have preliminary numbers, but I don't really like espousing preliminary numbers. But and even to that, you got like, so because even with the fast food worker point, and there's a lot to unpack there. I know you guys made that point about 10 minutes ago, but I've been thinking about it. The fast food industry is one of the few industries where women make more than men.
Yeah.
On a dollar by dollar basis, women make 2 cents more than men. For every dollar a man makes, a woman makes $1.02. But in any case, I think one of the things we got to get to, right? Because PC made some great points. And one of the points that I've always tried to make as it relates to the education system, because I'm not a trained educator, it's just a space that I constantly find myself in. And even now, I find myself again in this space, working with kids in a homeschool environment, and in a private school environment. So I think one of the things we have to do is we have to put so the education system and the business system need to be working hand in hand in tandem. Right? The educational system needs to be pushing out individuals that the business industry can use to push itself forward. And they need to be making demands of the education system. We need these kinds of individuals. And the educational system needs to be making demands of the business systems. We need these kinds of jobs, these kinds of sectors, these kinds of industries, because the academia, which is associated with the educational system, it should be looking out into the future and saying, this is what's coming.
Well, that's why I asked what I asked earlier.
Yeah, you guys need to be doing this. And the business sector needs to be saying, okay, we hear you, but for us to do this, you guys need to send us these people. And it becomes a cycle that needs to happen.
The problem is we not taking control of our own education that we need for our own community. I was listening to a clip of one of the breakdowns we had in the past. We was talking about it was one of the clips from one of the Independence Day shows we did, and it was talking about how liberation and freedom takes maturity. You got to be mature about this. And so we're not serious because most Black people don't even know this. Most Black people that I talk to have no idea that our wealth is constantly declining and we're on a literal road to zero.
But we talked about this in the Independence Day Project.
Right.
Go check that out at PC's website. We talked about it. And I think so even to that, like it becomes this idea of even once you create a business, right? Like even business owners, and this is something I'm thinking about now because I was just speaking to some business owners about this. As business owners, you have to be aware of the surroundings, your environment, the contextual and social environments that you exist in. If you are somebody that can cook and you want to open a restaurant, there are two things you need to keep in mind. One, you're going to be competing against machines. So that probably means you need to become a specialist of some kind. You need to become a boutique of some kind, something where you create a niche and you do that niche better than anybody else and any machine ever could. And people come to you because they want that experience. And you charge extra for it because you're having to pay extra to create that experience. But the other part is businesses in our community cannot be the same old businesses that typically exist. We got to go back to the old model of business ownerships and corporations where they were there for the benefit of the society they existed in and not the current model, which is they exist to create a customer, to create profits for the
For personal
shareholders.
gain.
Because if that is the idea you have when you're going into business for the black community, eventually you're going
Bro,
to replace your workers with machines so that you'll have higher margins. You're going to do certain things in business to create greater margins for yourself. And then, as I've heard countless black business owners say, and then it becomes the goal of the business becomes to build the profit margins and to build the established foundational base to such an extent that you can sell it.
look,
None of those things are beneficial to us as a community, but for us to have those different mentalities in our business owners, we have to have different mentalities pushed into them in the homes and in the schools. And so even when we're talking about how do you identify a futuristic career field, well, that's pretty easy. If you on the forefront of technology, the cutting edge of any particular industry or sector, if you can't even see the forefront, then you can't identify futuristic. You can't see it. You don't know what to look for. It's not there for you. So here's the thing I would say to those people: if you are not aware of the cutting edge of any particular industry and you want to start a business, your idea is probably a bad one.
look, I can tell you, especially for our community. See, you thinking big.
Of
You
course.
thinking right, but you're thinking the way we should think as far as large scale corporation industry infrastructure. Because we need to corner that. We have to get into that. We have to have that. But that's not how the everyday black person thinks. The everyday black person, when it comes to business and starting businesses, is more on the individualistic level. So that's
Well,
why. Go ahead.
no, I would say this. And here's the other thing I would say, because that's a good point. The average black person, here's the truth of it. If we was 100 years ago, that would be fine, right? It would be fine for the average black person to want to start a business and just run a mom and pop shop. That would be totally fine. If we're being realistic about the situation we exist in today, right? Realistic being the operative word there. If we want to create communal or social cultural impact, you have to create an institution. So if you are a black person that wants to start a business but is scared to go big and is also scared to fail, which that's the majority of us, get a job and
But
look at your job as if you are an independent contractor, because you are. You signed the employment agreement, you signed the contract, you're an independent contractor, and view that as you've started a business offering your services to corporations. That's what you do, because that's what's best for you and the community as a whole. Now, I said two conditions. Now, I don't want people jumping down my throat. If you are a black person that wants to start a business and you are both scared to fail and scared or unable to think big and doesn't believe in creating institutions, don't start a business of any kind. Get a job. There's
but
nothing
what we
wrong with having a job.
but wouldn't we needed to create institutions 100 years ago so our situation would be better now?
Absolutely, but we didn't, so we got to do it
Yeah.
now. And
So
those institutions need employees,
now
so get a job.
now check this. So when we're talking about foresight and understanding what's coming and paying attention to the future, um, I see a lot of, well, we also see through social media, but it's just in real life. Like, especially from 2020 to now, saw a lot of black owned businesses being started. And then within a year, those businesses didn't exist anymore. And a lot of those,
Absolutely.
soul food business, basically a lot of restaurants, soul food
Absolutely.
business. But on the other side of that, the people who do start like their little independent businesses by themselves, the one man band, they are just that, one man bands. And even if you are earning over $1 million, or you're earning not even $1 million, but you're earning a significant income for yourself to survive, you're still a one man band, so you're not able to employ others. So it's not really helping the larger picture.
Look, look, let me, and then I'm gonna shut up because I've been talking for a while. let me squash this bug right here, because I've been hearing this a lot lately, and I'm somebody that studies the business environment, right? Like from Lean Six Sigma to risk analysis and assessment to all of that. Like that's what I used to
Right.
do when I ran my business. That was what I did. Last I looked, the average profit margins for a full-time business owner in Black America was less than $30,000 a year. Right? More than 70 to 80% of Black-owned businesses don't employ anybody. Right?
Right.
So
Right.
not only are they not employing anybody, but given the fact that they're working 60 to 80 hours a week, they will probably also be making more money getting a job as a minimum wage worker somewhere.
Right.
Right. And not only that, you add in the fact that they are having next to no cultural impact. We need to rethink this excitement that we have for entrepreneurship. I'm not saying entrepreneurship is a bad thing. It's a great thing. I love entrepreneurs. I'm one. All three of us are entrepreneurs. We love it, but we need to be realistic about the realities of what it means to be an entrepreneur. You're going to work extremely long hours. You're going to work extremely hard, and you're not going to get paid on average. There are a few people that break through the glass ceilings, but comparing the average person to them is like comparing the average Black kid in the streets to Shaquille O'Neal.
Hey,
It doesn't make sense.
I just want to say this to that point. Why having competent present fathers in your life is important. For the longest, my pops would always give me the perspective of entrepreneurship is it's nothing. He would always say it's nothing wrong with having a 9 to 5 while you have your side hustle. And if your side hustle just so happens to turn into something that can replace your job significantly, then you go ahead and take that leap. But that view is not popular. The view that's popular is just you get an idea, just take the leap. Just take the leap. And
that's why we having the great regret.
Right. But my pops was saying, take a leap with the parachute. These motivational speakers are out here saying, just take a leap and close your eyes, and hopefully you'll land on your feet. But for the most part, like we're saying, a lot of people that I know and a lot of people that I've seen in this city who quit their jobs to go on their own in the last 3 years, they are back working for other people. And I said great, like 80 to 90% of them back working for other people.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Those people that can afford to create institutions so those people can get a job. There's nothing wrong with having a job. And real quick, I'm speaking from experience. I took the leap, right? I took the leap and I fell on my face too. Most of the people I know that took the leap fell on their face. But instead of highlighting those percentages, which are about 80 to 90% of us that are going to take that leap and fall on our face, we want to highlight the 1 or 2% that's not realistic. And the fact of the matter is, you're only special to your mother and your father. And some of you ain't even special to your father.
Look, PC, you want to get this? I just want to read a little bit from this Road to Zero Wealth report.
Just real quick. One of the things that will help us a lot is taking this money that we're making, for those of us who are making it, and invest it in a think tank. Investing in several think tanks to help offer us some concise numbers and predictions so that they can say, listen, this is the model and this is where you're going. You know what I'm saying? But we, too many of us try too many shortcuts. This whole microwave mentality has bled its way into our culture. So we want a quick, fast, hurry. We don't do any market research, anything. We don't, and then we're so immature and petty. It's almost like we're looking and waiting for somebody to fail so we can celebrate their failure. Instead of trying to learn from the mistakes they made, or try to make sure they don't fail. You know, so
Hey,
that's all I had to have.
hey,
Pat,
parents and
you and Pat pretty much y'all,
yeah,
y'all killed it on that one.
yeah.
I mean, she did.
Parents and people my age, stop complaining about the generation under us not having any drive, any ambition, and not wanting to work when we know damn well that's what we molded them to be. So just let me read a little bit from this Road to Zero Wealth report, and then we're gonna close it out. So it says in our 2016 report, the ever-growing gap without change, African American and Latino families won't match white wealth for centuries. We showed that if the current trends continue, it will take 228 years for the average black family to reach the level of wealth of white families own today. And I saw a black lady talking about this in the video not too long ago. Average Latino family matching the wealth of white families will take 84 years. It'll take us 228 years. But remember, our overall wealth is steadily in decline. In this report, we look at the racial wealth divide at the median over the next 4 and 8 years, as well as to 2043, when the country's population is predicted to become majority non-white. We also look to wealth rather than income to reconsider what it means to be middle class. In finding an ever accelerating gap, we consider what it means for American middle class, and we explore what policy interventions could reverse the trends we see today. We find that without a serious change in course, the country is heading towards a racial and economic apartheid state. A racial and economic apartheid state. Earning a middle class income does not guarantee middle class economic security. White households in the middle income those those earning 37,000 to 61,000 annually own nearly 8 times as much wealth. 86,100 as middle class black owners, 11,000, and 10 times as much as middle income Latino owners, 8,000. This disconnect income earned and wealth owned is visible across the entire income spectrum between these groups. All right. Where it says, I say by 2024, the median black and Latino households are predicted to own 60 to 80% less wealth than they did in 1983. By then, the continued rise in racial wealth inequality between median black, Latino, and white households is projected to lead white households to 99 to 75 times more wealth than their black and Latino counterparts, respectively. We don't even have time to get all the way into it, but I just want to read those parts because I was looking at those parts. But it's just like, look, they've already done the research, they've already done the numbers, they already see what us, but they already understand our behavior. They already look, stop calling it spending power. It's not spending power. It's not spending power. We just damn spending. It's power when you can actually use it to define your reality. Yeah. We can't use the money we keep spending and giving other people to define our own reality for ourselves. Power allows you to define not only your reality, but somebody else's reality as well. That's what power is. How the hell we define somebody's reality, our own reality, or let alone somebody else's reality, by spending all of our money? How does that happen?
Well, it's not our money if it only lasts for 6 hours in our community.
So
it's not spending power. By the time you get home, from your job and you finish shopping for the week or doing whatever you need to do, then you just have enough money to get back and forth to work until your next paycheck. That's most of our realities. Mm-hmm. But the bigger part is like, if people want to know what it looks like, we've been shown this. And we talk about predictive programming. I'm going to give you one reality and I'm going to give you one from the screen. Let me start with the screen first. Check out Hunger Games, because that's the reality we're moving for and moving towards. And in terms of, and you already see it right now with all the people, look at all the women and children living in cars right now.
Yes.
And living in storage shelters and getting kicked out of parking lots at night and being arrested for, illegal parking and things of that nature. And I'm focusing on that because nobody cares about the homeless men. Nobody cares. Black men in particular have been homeless more than anybody else in this country. But now you're talking about the people that are raising our children, the one that provide them culture. And their culture is going to be growing up as a vagabond off the road, in these horrible situations that people are trying to glamorize on social media. Now, if you want to see the reality to this, all you have to do is go back 40 years to apartheid South Africa to see this. And there's a great book that anybody can read called Cashapp by Mark Mathabane that gives you the day-to-day living of somebody who grew up in South African apartheid, in which they actually created a society that created a metropolis center metropolis area or mega city. And as the bans go out, the worse the conditions go, and you actually needed papers to actually move through each zone. So you want to talk about South African Bantu towns and things of that nature. And in fact, the majority of African cities and towns are still like that. I don't give a damn what they show you on the brochures. That's what we're looking at here. And you're already starting to see it. And with gentrification, moving people further and further out from the financial sectors and the money sources and the resources sectors of the cities around the country.
Hey, Jeremy Rifkin wrote The End of Work, the decline of the global labor force and the dawn of the post-market era. Hey, you better be serious about your life. You better be serious. Look, don't let the Instagram, we said this before, we said it again, don't let the Instagram fakeness fool you. Don't let the social media fakeness fool you. Don't let the trips fool you. Don't let the people spending money on things that they can't afford. Look, I personally know people who go on trips but can't feed their kids. They go on trips all around the world, but basic necessities they don't have. They don't have transportation, walking, can barely feed their children. But they're going on trips around the world, multiple people. Don't let the Instagram stuff fool you. You're gonna be out on your ass.
They skip it off on their rent.
Hey, look, you know, hey, look. Keep playing around. We're not saying that human beings should not be able to have fun and have experiences. But fun and experiences shouldn't be at the cost of your economic future, your economic reality. So if you want to be the boss, you got to pay the cost. And that's how I'm gonna end that. Joseph Ward, Patrick Irvin, Professor Carl, Tom Jones. I forgot to do the intro because we just got into it. But Breakdown Friday, this is how we do it. www.ontheshoulders1.com is the website. You can hit the super like button up under this video if you want to show me some love. Please show me some love. Hit the super like button. All right, and like this video. Like this video. Make sure you catch the next video coming up. We out. Love y'all.